Yeah, my name is David Cortez. I'm the Richard Armstrong Professor of Biochemistry in the Department of Biochemistry. The focus of my research is on how we replicate our DNA and how that happens in an accurate way trillions of times during our lifetime. So how do we copy the blueprint over and over and over again without making mistakes? So if you imagine the blueprint, the DNA blueprint, as being a book, it would be as tall as the Empire State Building, filled with words. And that has to be copied trillions of times during our lifetime. Mistakes happen, especially when there's DNA damage that occurs. So if somebody was spilling coffee or something on those pages, it makes it hard to replicate those pages. So when those mistakes happen, that can cause diseases like developmental disorders or cancer. So my research tries to understand how that process happens, and when it goes wrong, what we can do about it. My approach to running a lab is really just to make an environment and culture that empowers everybody in the lab to do what they want to do, to be the scientists they want to be, to do the training they want to accomplish. And so it's really just making the right environment, the right resources for them, and to assist them in achieving their goals. My lab uses all kinds of tools and methods to answer the questions we want to answer. We don't just focus on any one methodology. So we try to use whatever is required to answer the question, and that might be biochemistry, it might be cell biology or genetics, it might be using human cells, or even in bacterial cells, whatever is most appropriate to answering the question. Yeah, so my whole family were engineers. Nobody was a scientist. And so, of course, when I went to college, that's what I went to college for, is to be an engineer. And the math is okay. I could do it, but it wasn't any fun. And I think it's really important to do things that are fun. We are better at what we do if we're enjoying it. So I switched to biology and got interested in environmental contaminants and toxicology in college. And then when I did my graduate work, it was on cancer. And then after I was a graduate student for several years, I heard this talk by Steve Elledge, and it sort of was inspiring what he was doing. It was interesting. It was exciting. So that's when I started moving into this area of DNA damage and DNA repair and DNA replication. So basic science is important for a couple of reasons. The first and foremost is it's just cool. We need to learn about life. We need to learn about ourselves and the world. And basic science does that. Secondly, of course, it's important because it's useful. We can build on the foundation from basic science to intervene when there's a problem or a disease. All of our therapies, our vaccines, they are dependent on the basic knowledge that we created as basic scientists. Well, funding is essential, of course, for everything we do. And I would just say that I'm very thankful that the American people are excited about science and are willing to fund it, because we really depend mostly on their generosity and their tax dollars. So funding, without it, we can't do anything that we try to do in the lab. We can't create the basic science knowledge that's the foundation for our treatments, and we can't, of course, apply that knowledge to developing those treatments. So I'm just very thankful that we have the funding to do our work. There's been a lot of success stories in my lab, from my lab, the last 18 years. I think what I'm most proud of actually are the people. So just last year, Kareem Moni left my lab and became an independent investigator at Mayo Clinic. Zafar Dangrawala left my lab 2 years ago to become an independent scientist at University of South Florida. Kami Bhatt is at Genentech now. It's the people that have left my lab that are really the success stories. I love Vanderbilt. I am at Vanderbilt because 18 years ago when I was interviewing for jobs, I had a lot of options. The people here attracted me, the colleagues I would have, the resources I would have. And actually, one of the things that also attracted me, which is kind of weird to look back on, was that I thought Vanderbilt was a place I could have an impact on beyond my own lab, which is a really odd thing for an assistant professor just starting their lab to be thinking about. But I think it's true, and I'm really thankful that I've had the ability and the opportunity to have those impacts. So Vanderbilt is a unique place for basic sciences in medical schools because of our structure that allows us to have a really strong basis, a foundation for research. It also is a really collaborative environment, and people depend on each other and get along very well, and I really value that the culture here is great. Yeah, I love Vanderbilt. I've had opportunities to go other places, and I've always thought that I've made the best decision by staying at Vanderbilt. My advice for trainees, graduate students, and postdocs is to try hard things. Ask interesting questions, and don't be afraid to try really hard things, because those are the interesting things, and we don't always succeed. Really, we only need a couple of good ideas every decade to be successful as scientists. The rest is just following the logic. But if we just try a few hard things, every once in a while they pan out. So that's my advice to all trainees, is try the hard things, ask the important questions. So going to seminars is the fastest way to learn. It's easy. You sit for an hour and you can learn everything that's exciting about another scientist's work in an hour. It's much easier than reading papers, searching the web. So I always encourage all my trainees to go to as many seminars as possible. When I recruit students and postdocs, I'm mainly just interested in their motivation, their interests, their goals. I want to make sure that their goals match mine, that I can help them achieve their goals. And they're all smart. Everybody's a smart person that comes and interviews with us. It's really just a matter of matching and making sure that I can support them and that they'll thrive in the environment that I can create. So motivated individuals who really love what they're doing, that's what my lab is filled with. Oh, diversity is essential in a research environment. My own lab has been filled with people from all across the world, from Egypt, India, China, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, all across the United States. They really make it a fun place to work first, but also they bring their own background and knowledge that I think really enriches all of us. So I grew up outside of Chicago and went to University of Illinois, a public school, a big school, and I loved it there. And when I was looking for graduate studies in schools, I ended up at Duke, which was a great place to do cancer biology, which is what I started in. And after 4 years there, I moved to the Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, and then to here. So that's been my training track. As I mentioned before, I started in engineering and moved into biology and biomedical sciences, and I really am glad I made that decision. I love my job. I love doing science. I love being a scientist. There's nothing I'd rather do.